Hi guys, I'm Rhonda and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going over some new releases that are coming out this winter season that I am most excited about. I know that I just did a new release video. I did one, I think last week or the week before, where I went over the holiday romance new releases that I am interested in reading. However, this one is different because I like to do seasonal new release videos as well. I did one in the springtime and the summer as well as in the fall where I went over the new releases that I was interested in reading. But in this video, I'm going over all of the new releases that I'm most interested in that are coming out in the winter months. That's December, January, and February. And to be honest with you, there's really not a ton. I think there's only like 20 or 21 books that are coming out this winter season that I kind of want to read. Some of these are going to be popular books. Some of these might be books you may not have heard of, but these are just the ones that I think are interesting. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. I have my computer in front of me, and let's start with December. Beginning the first week of December, on December 1st, a book that's coming out that I'm interested in reading is called 10,000 Light Years from OK by Tracy Dobmere and Wendy Katzman. I don't know what the genre is on this one. I don't know if it is contemporary romance or if it's just women's fiction. I think it might be a little bit of a mix of both. But the blurb reads, "A widowed and grieving young novelist believes her words create realities, both tragic and charmed, in a hopeful and surprising novel about family, newfound love, and moving on." And I think the gist of this book is a woman loses her husband and she's now a single mom, and she writes a new book where I think it's about, it's a fairy tale romance featuring a long lost astronaut who returns home to his family with the hero loosely drawn from our female main character's memories of her own husband. And so I'm assuming after she finishes it, a man walks into our FMC's life and he is a charismatic astronaut. And then it goes on to say Thea, who is our FMC, she can't believe it's happening again, or is it? Her mother-in-law doesn't think so. She sees only a woman increasingly detached from reality. Now, as coincidences between Thea's writing and reality pile up, Thea must unravel the secrets of her past and tackle her grief head on before she loses more than she's ever imagined. So this one's going to be magical realism where our FMC writes stories and some real things happen based off of stories that she has created. So this one is obviously going to be a book about grief. I think this might even be a book about hope because it sounds like there might be a little bit of a romance that happens between Thea and maybe this astronaut. And this one just sounds really sweet, and it's going to sound like a book that's going to have some depth, which is what I do enjoy when it comes to these women's fiction and romance books. Coming out on December 2nd is A Grim Reaper's Guide to Cheating Death by Maxie Dara. This is actually the second book in this series that she has written. It is called the Scythe Mysteries series. I read the first book, which is called A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer, and I did enjoy that. These are kind of like cozy mysteries, and these books revolve around modern Grim Reapers. And in the first book, we followed one Grim Reaper, and in the second one, we're following a different one. So I think with each book she writes, it's just going to be a different character that we're going to follow, which I do enjoy. Sometimes I get bored reading about the same characters in series. But in this one it says, when a determined killer targets her brother, a Grim Reaper risks everything to save him in this delightful, cozy mystery. So I do want to read the second one. Like I said, I did enjoy the first one. They're just cozy, fun, and entertaining little mysteries, and I had a good time with the first one, so I will definitely pick this one up. Coming out on December 16th is Love in Plain Sight by Lauren Connolly. Lauren Connolly is actually the author of a book that I read earlier this year. She had her debut novel called P.S.A. Hate You, and I really enjoyed that book, and it was very moving and funny and emotional, and it was such a good book. So I do want to try and read this one, and just like with her first book, P.S.A. Hate You, she tends to write contemporary romances that have a little bit of a women's fiction feel. They're funny, they're emotional, there's depth. And this one is about, the blurb says, with her brother's grumpy best friend and her longtime nemesis as Beth's flight instructor, her pilot lessons could be a plain disaster or their first ticket to forever. So apparently we're following George and Beth, and George is the best friend of her brother. So this one's going to be brother's best friend. And apparently he ends up giving Beth some discounted flight lessons because he almost kills them in a plane crash. And then it says, the more time they spend navigating the sky, the more the turbulence between George and Beth dissipates. But Beth has seen the burning wreckage that comes from mixing business with pleasure. Plus, she's been keeping a secret that, once revealed, will send all her relationships into a tailspin. Can she really take a risk on romance when her pilot career isn't even off the ground? Moving on to the last week of December, December 30th, I am super excited about this next book because it is the last book in the When in Rome series. And yes, I'm talking about In Your Dreams by Sarah Adams. I have really loved this series. The first two books have been closed door romances, which I do really love. They're funny, they're quirky, they're just sweet, sugary sweet books, and I will always recommend them. The last book that came out in the series earlier this year called Beg, Borrow, or Steal, that one is not closed door. There are, I think, 2 scenes, but they are written in their own chapters, and you can just skip that chapter completely and not miss anything with the story. And I think that's going to be the case with this new one. But it says, a homecoming to Rome, Kentucky sparks a new romance and lots of drama between 2 old family friends. And we're following Madison Walker, who is one of the sisters in this family that we're following in this series. And then we're also following James, who is her brother's best friend. And I've been looking forward to the story between these two because you've been getting little snippets of something that's going to happen. So super excited about this. I'm absolutely going to be waiting by the doors at Barnes & Noble before they open to pick up my copy of this book. Also coming out on December 30th is We Who Will Die by Stacia Stark. And this is the author who wrote the Court This Cruel and Lovely series, the Kingdom of Lies series. I do have that first book to read at some point, but she wrote that entire series. And she's starting a brand new romantasy series called the Empire of Blood series. And this first book is obviously the first book in that series. And I put this on here because this has apparently some kind of Roman setting and it features vampires. I love both of those things. So this one, I don't know if I'm actually going to read it. I kind of want to read this one book that I have by her first, but I do like vampires. I do like Roman things. I think this is just going to be something that's really going to interest me. But the blurb on this one reads that this series is a slow burn romantasy set in a Roman-inspired world ruled by merciless vampires, filled with breathtaking combat, vengeful gods, and magical creatures. We Who Will Die is the epic first installment in an enthralling new series. So there's that one. Moving on to January, a book that's coming out on January 6th is The Storm by Rachel Hawkins. I have not read anything by this author, and I'm very surprised by that because she has quite the backlist. This one is just another one of her mystery thrillers, and it's under 300 pages. But this one says St. Medard's Bay, never heard of that, Alabama, is famous for 3 things: the deadly hurricanes that regularly sweep into town, the Rosalie Inn, a century-old hotel that survived every one of those storms, and Lo Bailey, the local girl infamously accused of the murder of her lover, political scion Landon Fitzroy, during Hurricane Marie in 1984. When Geneva Corliss, the current owner of the Rosalie Inn, hears a writer is coming to town to research the crime that put St. Medard's Bay on the map, she's less interested in solving a whodunit than in how a successful true crime book might help the struggling inn's bottom line. But to her surprise, August Fletcher doesn't come to St. Medard's Bay alone. With him is none other than Lo Bailey herself. Lo says she's returned to her hometown to clear her name once and for all, but the closer Geneva gets to both Lo and August, the more she wonders if Lo is actually back to settle old scores. So this one sounds like this is going to be a mystery thriller that's going to be set in the summertime, so it might be a good one to pick up to read in the summertime if you are a seasonal reader. And this one sounds interesting. I have family from Alabama, and I have family from Pensacola, Florida, and they kind of made their way over here to Texas, so I'm kind of familiar with that area. I'm not familiar, I'm assuming this town is fictional because I have not heard of this area of Alabama before, but might be one that I want to read this summertime. Okay, also coming out on the same day is The First Time I Saw Him by Laura Dave. This is the second book in the Hannah Hall series. The first one is The Last Thing He Told Me. I did read that book. I gave it 5 stars. I really loved it. And I haven't read anything else by this author. But apparently this story picks up where that first one left off. It says 5 years after her husband Owen disappeared, Hannah Hall and her stepdaughter Bailey have settled into a new life in Southern California. Together, they forge a relationship with Bailey's grandfather, Nicholas, and are putting the past behind him. But when Owen shows up at Hannah's new exhibit, she knows that she and Bailey are in danger again. Apparently, this is a gripping, rich, and deeply moving novel about the power of forgiveness. And yeah, this is just a sequel to that first book. So I don't know that the first book needed a sequel, so it's clear they're kind of riding on the coattails of that first book. I kind of want to read this, but I think this might just be a book that I pick up from the library sometime down the road. But if you are a fan of Laura Dave and you enjoyed that first book like I did, just know that the sequel is coming out on January 6th. Moving on, coming out on January 13th is a new book by Colleen Hoover called Woman Down. And this one looks like it's going to be a mystery thriller, and it says that it's about a frustrated author is looking for her muse in a remote hideaway, but what she finds defies all expectations and reality. So I have read some Colleen Hoover books over this past year. She is actually a new author to me. I've never read her books before, but over the last year and a half, I've read 5 of her books and I've really enjoyed every one of them. I don't quite understand all of the hate that she gets. Every time I go to Target, I have to, and I'm looking at books, I flip all of her books back around to where the cover is facing out because someone is always going around and turning them backwards. I don't get it. I know that she writes about toxic relationships. She writes very strange, disturbing books, but I kind of like them. Sometimes it's good to read something different. But if you're like me and you've enjoyed the Colleen Hoover books you've read, then just know she has a brand new book coming out, and I definitely will be reading this one. Also coming out on January 13th is Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Elston. This is the same author who wrote First Fly Wins. I read that one and had a good time with it. It was a lot of fun. I think I gave that 3 or 4 stars. But this new one is about, it's another mystery thriller, and it says that it is a tense and feverish thriller about 2 women's lives that are forever intertwined when a murder threatens to expose them both. Apparently this is about 2 women named Aubrey and Camille, and apparently there is a plan that they hatch, and it says, it sounds simple. For 12 hours, Aubrey will take Camille's place. Camille will spy on Ben, who I think is her husband. And the 2 women will get the answers they desperately seek, except the next morning, Ben is found murdered. Both women need an airtight alibi, but only one of them has it. And one false step is all it takes for everything to come undone. Ashley Elston with First Fly Wins. That one was kind of like a cat and mouse type book, and I think this is going to be the same. So yeah, I will probably pick this one up too. Like I said, I had a great time reading that first book, and I'm sure I'll love this one too. Coming out that next week in January, on January 20th, is a book that I'm so excited about. It is A Box Full of Darkness by Simone St. James, and I have no clue what this one is about because when I saw that she's coming out with a new book, I just immediately added it to my list. So we're going to find out together. But this one says, siblings return to the house they fled 18 years ago, called back by the ghost of their long missing brother and his haunting request to come home. Strange things happen in Fell, New York, a mysterious drowning in the town's roadside motel, the unexplained death of a young girl whose body is left by the railroad tracks. For Violet, Vale, and Dodie Esme, the final straw was their little brother's shocking disappearance, which started as a normal game of hide and seek. As their parents grew increasingly distant, the sisters were each haunted by visions and frightening events, leading them to leave town and never look back. Violet still sees dead people, spirits who remind her of Sister, the menacing presence that terrorized her for years. Now, after nearly 2 decades, it's time for a homecoming because Ben is back and he's ready to lead them to the answers they've longed for and long feared. Yes, please, I will read this one. Simone St. James, in case you don't know, she writes, they're a little bit of light horror, they're a little bit mystery thriller, but they are all, I've loved all of her books. I'm a huge fan. She is an auto-buy, instant read author for me, and I cannot wait for this book to come out. Coming out on the same day is a book by Alice Feeney called My Husband's Wife. I have read one book by this author. I read Beautiful Ugly. That was her last new release. Did not really love it. I do have 2 of her books on my physical TBR. I have Daisy Darker and Rock, Paper, Scissors. I hope to read both of them in the next month or 2. So hopefully if I love those books, then I might pick this one up. This one, it sounds like it's going to be a psychological thriller. And this one says, Eden Fox, an artist on the brink of her big break, sets off for a run before her first exhibition. When she returns to the home she recently moved into, Spyglass, an enchanting old house in Hope Falls, nothing is as it should be. Her key doesn't fit. A woman eerily similar to her answers the door, and her husband insists that the stranger is his wife. What? One house, one husband, two women. Someone is lying. Oh, yes. That sounds really good. This says, my husband and wife is a tangled web of deception, obsession, and mystery that will keep you guessing until the last page. Prepare yourself for the ultimate mind-bending marriage thriller and step inside Spyglass if you dare to experience a story where nothing is as it seems. Yes, yes, yes. I'm absolutely going to read this one. That sounds bonkers. Okay, so yeah, that one comes out on January 20th. Another book that comes out on the same day is The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. So this is the same author who wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I read that one a couple of years ago. Really had a good time with it. And this one is something a little bit different. This one is going to be a contemporary fiction. And it says, perfect for fans of Daisy Jones and the Six and in 5 Years, a beautiful, powerful, and transportive new novel about a music executive desperately trying to bring a rock band back from the brink, from best-selling author Ashley Winstead. Apparently, this is about a record label enforcer and occasional miracle worker named Theo Ford is sent to a tiny LA venue to evaluate the future saints. He's meant to shut them down until Hannah steps on stage and delivers a soul-splitting final performance that goes viral. And apparently this band has lost their manager, who was also Hannah's sister Jenny. But he ends up taking on the impossible mission of putting them back together. Tour by tour, stage by stage, he becomes the glue holding them barely intact, pushing them from the bright lights of Vegas to the heart of San Francisco. Apparently, Hannah has some issues. She's haunted by grief, haunted by her sister. She numbs her pain with booze and pills and denial, and she drags herself and the band to the brink. And then Theo, he is risking his job, his sanity, and his heart because something in Hannah's broken resilience calls him, even if they are destined to crash and burn. So it sounds like this is going to be a blend of nostalgic band drama, that has the same feeling or vibes as Almost Famous, Daisy Jones and the Six, and apparently it's going to be a book about grief and sisterhood and addiction and mental health and family dysfunction. This sounds really, really good. So this is just another one that I may want to pick up. Those are all of the books that are coming out in January. Let's move into February. Beginning on February 3rd, I have one book that I'm interested that's coming out that week, and that is It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. I've read a few books by this author, and I do mostly enjoy them. And the blurb on this one says, two families vacationing at a secluded lake resort are at the center of a chilling crime and mysterious disappearance in this twisty, unputdownable thriller. So yeah, it looks like this is set at a quiet lake resort. There's a double murder. Apparently there is a missing teenage niece, and apparently there is a main character that is in the middle of it all. So yeah, this one just sounds like it's going to be another summer thriller, and I have read a couple of her, I've read 3 of her books. I read her last book, She's Not Sorry. Really enjoyed that book. It had an incredible twist. I read Local Woman Missing, enjoyed that one, and I read Just the Nicest Couple. I think I found that one just okay. But yeah, I may want to read this one. I think it might be good for the summertime. Coming out on February 10th is The Night Prince by Lauren Pelferman. This is actually the second book in the Wolf King series that was originally indie published, which has since been picked up by a major publisher and is getting traditionally published. The first book, The Wolf King, is coming out on November 25th, and that one's going to be a beautiful deluxe special edition book. And then again on February 10th, the second book in that duology, The Night Prince, is coming out with its own special edition. I actually did read The Wolf King. I just actually finished it earlier this week, and I thought it was fine. There are parts of it I really enjoyed, and there were parts of it that kind of dragged for me. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars, but I do want to continue with this series. And I do have both the indie version of those books, and depending on what I think about the second book will determine whether or not I buy the special editions, because let's be honest, I am such a big sucker for these special editions. I think they are beautiful. These publishers are marketing geniuses. Even if I own the book and they come up with a special edition, I absolutely want them. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get it. It depends on what I think about this last book in the series. But if you are a fan of those books, just know the second special edition. It's coming out on February 10th. Okay, moving on to the next week is The Astral Library by Kate Quinn. Kate Quinn writes historical fiction. I think we all know who she is. I have yet to read one of her books, believe it or not, but I do have a few on my physical TBR that I need to get to. But this one is a little bit different. It is a little bit of a historical fiction, but it's more like a fantasy book with some magical realism. But this one says it is a fantastical adventure which poses the question, have you ever wished you could live inside a book? Oh, yeah, I do. Welcome to the Astral Library, where books are not just objects, but doors to new worlds, new lives, and new futures. That sounds incredible. But yeah, that one comes out on February 17th in case you are a huge Kate Quinn fan as well as a fantasy fan. Also coming out on February 17th is Her Last Breath by Taylor Adams. I have read one book by this author. I read The Last Word and loved that book. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I read it. It was a nail biter. But this one is about two friends who embark on an ill-fated caving expedition and the dark truth of what happens deep underground. So apparently Tess has agreed to go caving with her best friend Alma. Their lives have diverged sharply since high school. Alma is a self-made travel influencer while Tess is a shy and claustrophobic legal assistant struggling to pay for law school. Maybe she's a little jealous of Alma's globe-trotting life. Who wouldn't be? As Tess and Alma descend into the depths, they realize they're not alone. A stranger who claims to be a fellow caver harasses them. Confident, taken no shit, Alma insults the guy, and he retaliates. Soon, Tess is trapped inside a narrow crawl space hundreds of feet underground, fighting to stay alive. I'm already getting anxiety reading this, especially since Tess is apparently claustrophobic. Okay, it goes on to say 24 hours later, as a hospitalized Tess recounts her harrowing story of survival, the detective interviewing her shares new and shocking secrets about Alma's true past. Together, they begin to suspect the brutal attack wasn't so random after all. Who was Alma really? Why did this man target them? And did Tess really leave the danger behind when she escaped the cave? This just sounds like a very different book. I mean, who would think to write a thriller about caving? But apparently Taylor Adams has. So yeah, that one comes out on February 17th. Also coming out on February 17th is When I Kill You by B.A. Paris. I have read a few books by this author and I've really enjoyed every one of them. I do have two on my physical TBR. I've actually read them already many years ago and I bought them again because I don't remember what they were about and I want to reread them. But this is another mystery thriller and it says, who is watching Nell Masters? Nell Masters is certain someone is following her. The hairs on the back of her neck rise when she travels to and from work. There are silent calls to her office and a huge bouquet of flowers arrive without a card. And Nell has a reason to be looking over her shoulder because she has a secret that she's been hiding from everyone in her life, including her new partner, Alex. But Alex also has secrets of his own. 14 years earlier, when Nell went by the name Elle Nugent, she witnessed a student, Briony Sanders, getting into a stranger's car. When Briony was found murdered, Elle became obsessed with finding the person responsible. She was convinced she knew who it was, and her fixation with Brett Parker, the man she accused, led her down a dangerous path. Now Nell tries to convince herself that this unnerving feeling of being watched is all in her mind. Has someone from her past discovered her new identity? Has the stalker become the stalked? Or is there something even more deadly at play? I think this B.A. Paris just writes really good psychological thrillers, and I'm absolutely going to read this one. What books has she written? Yeah, I've read Behind Closed Doors, I've read The Breakdown, I've read Therapist, I've read Bring Me Back, and I have The Guest, which is her last new release that came out last year or the year before. I have that one on my physical TBR to get to, and yeah, I've really enjoyed, like I said, all of her books. So I would expect nothing but perfection with this one as well. And then finally, the very last book that I want to talk about is a book by B.K. Borison. It is the second book in her Heartstring series called And Back to You. This one comes out on February 24th. The first book in that series is First Time Caller, and this is just another book in that interconnected series. And it says, two competing meteorologists are forced to find common ground and the opposites attract When Harry Met Sally inspired romance. So it sounds cute. I love the movie When Harry Met Sally. And I did read First Time Caller. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. But this one, we'll see. I don't know if I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna wait for the reviews to come out and see if this is one that I'm gonna pick up. But yeah, those are all the books that are coming out in these winter months from December through February. Let me know in the comments if you plan to read any of these. Let me know if there's any books that I missed, because let's be honest with you, these are not every single book that's coming out in these months. I'm sure I missed a lot of good ones. So let me know in the comments if I did. What are you most excited about? But that's all I have for you. I hope you found this video useful and helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.